Production. I think. See, for me,
We
when
got Kai back on the show.
yeah,
We convinced her.
when I watch YouTube, 9 out of 10 of the podcasts or shows that I watch that have introductions, I just turn off.
Yeah.
Like if they go,
Oh, this is Dr. Cordy. Blah,
and then
blah,
you got to
blah.
do I just turn it off. I'm like,
Eh.
yeah, I pretty much know what you're going to talk about anyway.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like the best thing to do is have no intro and just each video just start.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the podcasts we did was about high school, and
Yeah.
I don't really know that part of your life. I don't really know what high school was like and early childhood was like for Kai. I don't really know. I can only
Yeah.
assume that you were likely, I wouldn't say a tomboy, but I would say that you were, you were friends with the boys, like a lot of girls who had a
Yeah.
lot of guy friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, take me through what early adolescence was like. Take me through what elementary school and into junior high and high school. I mean, you don't have to give me all the details, but give me a synopsis.
Before graduation, I went to 13 schools. I was in a new school probably almost every year, if not multiple schools in 1 year. I moved around with my mom, who was a single mom most of my life.
What part of Canada was this?
Terrace, BC. I was born and raised for on and off for 11 years.
And you went to how many schools?
13.
13.
Yeah.
Holy crap! That's like one of those military kids you see in movies.
Yeah.
I moved around because my daddy was moving around. Okay. Fuck,
Well, sometimes was a bit of a war living with my single mom. Not the military, but yeah.
Yeah. Single
mom,
moms
2 kids,
are
young mom. I went to 13 schools before I almost graduated.
And what was making friends like?
Always making friends with either the wrong people to start, like the troublesome, like the outcast ones, or with boys. I guess I was a bit of a tomboy.
Really?
Yeah, I was a bit of a tomboy.
Okay.
I mean, I used to always ride bikes with the boys and
nowadays they would be telling you that you needed to convert to being a boy. Nowadays they would say, "Oh, you like boy stuff? Hey, let's take you to a therapist and find out why." Anyway, that's for another subject.
I'm happy in a female's body,
Yeah.
but you know what? At some point in my life, I probably did look like a 11-year-old boy when I was 11. Nowadays, like 11 and 12-year-old girls look like models. They look like when I was younger, what girls would look like when they were like 16. So yeah, I mean, I guess moving around, when I made friends, it was like, the kind of the outcasts. My grandma always said, like, you always meet the wrong people first, so be cautious.
Interesting. Everybody knows and talks about how difficult anybody who has to move around all the time, how difficult it is for them to sort of
adapt,
make roots,
build,
dig in roots. Not having friends. How was
I made a lot of friends, and I can say that I guess
kept them.
I still have friends from when I was in probably primary school that I have, still talk to or, connected with on Facebook. Facebook is great to connect with people over the years. I mean, not a lot of people younger than us really use Facebook anymore. I guess it's like for old people.
So true.
And now it's like Instagram, Snapchat, but you got Facebook in like 2007. You start looking up all these people, maybe like high school crush or like the bully from your high school. See like what they're doing now. You're like, oh yeah, you don't have the greatest life for bullying people for, you were going places and now, I have friends from pretty much all age. I lived in a lot of really crappy kind of towns like Terrace, Prince George, Fort McMurray, Courtney. Oh yeah, I wasn't popular in schools, but you know what? Like I figured that if I didn't get along with certain people, I knew that I'd be moving in the next year or two, so I didn't really care. It's like, you don't like me, I'm not even going to see you for the rest of my life. Like next year, next chapter. Like I didn't have to like go to school with those people for 5 or 10 years and go through all the bullying or go through all the conflict or breakups and things like that. I just knew that I wouldn't have to deal with them again. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess that would be a benefit to sort of moving around.
Yeah.
You just kind of know, oh, okay, bye.
Yeah, I think
out of sight, out of mind
yeah.
forever.
I think I developed like later too. I also started kindergarten when I was 4 years old, so I was always a year younger than everybody else in my grade. And then when high school started,
why would you start at 4? Because you're born at the beginning of the year.
It was a program called the Dual Entry Program, and so I didn't really realize that there were other people that were born in, I guess it was like 1986. So when there was a whole bunch of people born in that year that got put in the same thing, and I didn't notice that until high school, that there were other people that did that. I thought it was just like maybe like 1 or 2 people. And yeah, it definitely affected me later on because high school started at grade 8 and I was a year younger than everybody.
It did
and I mean, you know, mentally and educational wise, like I was on par, if not, you know, smarter than some of the kids I went to school with, but physically developed like I wasn't. So grade 8, I was going to school with girls who were in grade 12 as well. Like there was no junior high. It was like primary and elementary, kindergarten to grade 8. And then you started grade 8 to grade 12 in another high school. So for me to be like this, you know, scrawny, like tomboy looking, like I think I shaved my head at like leaving grade 7 or something. So I went into grade 8 with like short hair, braces. And then all the girls in grade 12 were like fully developed, like women at that point. Like, you know, they're like
so
curvy
we
and like have like breasts and stuff. And it's like, you know.
So not a lot of relationships in high school. Like me, I
had crushes, and I mean, you know, had everybody else was having like everybody else was like getting into like sexual stuff long before I ever was even like interested in it. I was actually pretty like shy and like frigid. I remember going to like
frigid. Remember that term?
Yeah,
frigid.
I was like pretty.
She's frigid.
Yeah, I was pretty like shy and frigid. I think. You know, I remember going to like a carnival or like a fair with a group of friends, and I just really had a crush on this guy, and apparently we were like boyfriend and girlfriend. And
so when did you have your first boyfriend?
Like first real boyfriend? When I was like 20.
Really?
Well, like, yeah, I dated in high school and stuff, but never, I don't know. I moved schools, right? So it's like, you know, maybe I had a boyfriend that, you know, for like a couple months, but were relationships even real then? It's like, oh, you know, so-and-so's dating.
Well, they teach you about relationships, right? They at least they introduce you to relationships. And, you know, if those situations and circumstances were terrible, then that's your first introduction to love and relationships. And I'm just very curious to know if it was, you know, a poor experience.
No poor experiences. I didn't really have any high school boyfriends. I just kind of like.
Well, what was your first one like?
I mean, well, they say that you have 3 loves.
That's what they say.
So, I mean, I would say like my first love was when I moved back to Terrace in my 20s. And yeah, we dated for like 2.5 years. We lived together. I think where things fell apart there, well, I mean, I learned a lot. Like I learned actually how to love someone and how to love back. I would say we were in love, and it was healthy. I didn't know if it was where I wanted to be because going back to my hometown of Terrace in my 20s was kind of weird. I didn't want to be there, but I moved back for a job that I was offered working up in a camp. So
because I met you when you were like 24?
23 or 22 or 23, same age as your son.
Right. So pretty much coming up on around. Okay. So this was like right before I met you then.
Yeah. Yeah. So I moved back to the island when actually him and I split up because I'm
starting to remember this particular because I remember you were in Terrace before you moved here, right? And that's where that relationship was.
Yeah. Okay. And my biggest thing was that he never wanted children and never seemed to want to move out of our hometown. He still lives there, which is great. I mean, all of his friends and family are there, and he now has 2 children. One of them has the same name as me. It's very strange.
Well, and he didn't want children. Interesting.
I mean, we were young. And I mean, people, you know, when you're in your early 20s, maybe you don't want kids. And as you grow older, your, I guess, clock starts, you know, you get these parental, like, you know, feelings and you start to change. Like you start to think, oh, I want a partner in my life. You know, I want a family. I want purpose in my life in the future. And you just start to change and want different things. So like when we were in our 20s, you know, maybe he didn't want children then, and then later on he met somebody that, you know, convinced him.
And how long were you guys together?
About like 2.5 or just over 2 years.
Okay. And how old was he?
I think he was a year older than me
Okay.
at the time, so not even 25.
Yeah, it's just there's part of me that believes that, you know, if you fall in love, you can make that relationship work if you know, we don't allow those outside sort of influences of the world to sort of mess with our perspective, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure you're not aware of the battle of the sexes that is going on right now. I mean, it's at, I would call its peak that it's ever been at.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard about it. Maybe I mentioned this to you. I can't remember. There is a movement going on online called the soft girl movement.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what age demographic it is. I think it's between like 18 to 25. So what generation is that? Julian, what generation is that? That your generation. What is this? Gen Z. Okay. A lot of Gen Z young women are starting to realize that there's this, the soft girl doesn't value the grind or getting ahead. She prioritizes slow living. Her days are filled with a nearly obsessive focus on self-care, from making the perfect morning smoothie to tending to her skin and trading in hardcore HIIT workouts for leisurely cardio or cozy cardio. Okay. So this is a genuine, movement that's going on right now. And it's kind of a pushback on the modern feminist movement that has been, getting me canceled and just even talking about it. But just understand, people, this is what's going on in the world. I'm not trying to, attack women, but it's a very interesting, take on the world right now. And the reason why I want to ask, these questions and these probing questions into your life is because I want to know what you think about, being such a strong woman your whole life. You've had to endure this, like, soft girl movement is not what you were forced to live with.
Yeah.
Right. And how do you relate your strength to your relationship patterns?
I feel because I've always had to be in survival mode, I maybe didn't get a chance to have some of those younger relationships. Mm-hmm. So when I had my first one, I maybe wasn't quite ready to, I guess, be a woman in the relationship, but
also factor in his mindset too, right? Because he was obviously confused as well.
Yeah, we were young, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, because I've always been in survival mode and kind of had to be a man and a woman, a mom and a dad to myself, that my strong independence has pushed some men away. And maybe I didn't notice at the time because, I was just living my life, taking care. It's like, I was never like, I don't need no man, I can take care of myself. Like,
no, you've never seemed to be that type.
Never consciously, but maybe subconsciously, like, or I was giving off that vibe, being like a more alpha female, maybe attracted alpha males because softer men, maybe a better fit for me, would have scared them away.
Okay, so I don't necessarily believe that alpha males are attracted to alpha females. I think alpha males are attracted to attractive women.
Yeah, it's true. Who isn't?
Yeah, and alpha females are attracted to alpha males naturally because alpha males tend to be stronger than beta males, and alpha females are not attracted to beta males.
Exactly.
So, being an alpha female, you tend to find yourself pursuing alpha males, and unfortunately, if what seems to be happening is women are pursuing, or alpha females tend to lean into their masculinity because they have to in order to take care of themselves, because what seems to be happening is alpha females tend to be cheated on. They get cheated on because men tend to find softer women more sexually attractive, and alpha women tend to make it harder for men to see them in a submissive position because they're not submissive.
Yeah.
They're not submissive beings. They're very, independent and they take care of themselves. They're fully capable of. They don't need a man, right? So
they're confident.
Yeah, like realistically, they have embraced their masculinity, and that's really what masculinity is kind of, geared all about is embracing your independence and your ability to provide and take care of yourself and take care of a family. You said you only fall in love 3 times. How many times have you been in love?
3.
3. All right. Yeah. It's funny because I think I've been in, I feel like I was in love, and I don't want to I feel like I've only been in love really twice. I don't want to take away the relationship and the love that I had from my son's mother because, I do care very much about her, and
that was your first kind
of
love.
And but it was a different kind of love because it was sort of forced circumstance because we ended up getting pregnant so young and so short notice. We'd only been dating for a few months, less than 3 months.
Introductory love. Yeah.
So it was sort of, circumstances that made that relationship happen because, it wasn't until a few months in where we realized that we really aren't that compatible. We were very different people, but, becoming parents together, obviously we tried our best for a few years or, on and off for 4 years. And then I started a relationship which felt like the first real love that I'd ever been in. So I like to think, based on what you were saying about how you can only have 3 loves, I sometimes think, oh shit, well, I mean, if I factor in my baby mama, I'm at 3. I'm at 3. So
maybe that was the introductory. Like I said, like it's kind of like you maybe didn't fall in love with this person. It was more like you tried to make it work because of the situation or circumstantial. I don't know all the details.
Well, and she was, we were both so different. She was going through her own stuff, and I was young, and being a younger guy, she was not very nice to me. She was, she picked on me a lot, and that really messed with my self-esteem. When I found that relationship that still feels to me like that first, like, wow, love. I was in my mid-20s, but I've always been very alpha myself. I know a lot of people don't like that term. They don't like to utilize or it's funny too, because there's this subset of people out there who are trying to pretend that alpha beta science doesn't exist, like in humans, and that's obviously the left-wing liberal nonsense that's trying to convince us that gender doesn't exist, which until I see some that just sounds like pure confusion and nonsense to me. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I mean I'm a man, you're a woman. It's very evident. And but yeah, I've always been very alpha, and I've dated many types of women. I've dated lots of alphas. And if I'm being completely honest, the alpha females that I know today still that are, I'm still friends with, you included, they are all and have been always in and out of relationships. And it has to have something to do with their strength, right? Because guys tend to want, it seems like when you look around, the girls that get married and the girls that, stay with their guy for however many years, they're not career-oriented women. You know what I mean? These women who tend to be that I see in my work, like just, speaking to women every day for 23 years, the women that I see that are married for long periods of time, from their 20s till today, they never pursued career that was, they had jobs, they worked a job here and there, but they weren't hell-bent on being, a boss babe, right? Like the soft girl movement is trying to sort of veer away from this boss babe mentality, which, even people like Candace Owen and other political commentators are sort of pointing out that, who decided this? There's that comedian, something Wong, Ali Wong, where she says she's like, girls, who decided for us to have a job? You know what our job used to be? No job.
Yeah. And taking care of the house, taking care of the kids.
Yeah. And I don't know. It just, the whole world seems so confusing right now. And I see so many good, smart, brilliant women struggling to find happiness. And they'll find themselves in and out of relationships. And the funny part about them is that when they're in relationships, everything that they did in their lives was a success now, because now I'm in love. Now I'm in a relationship. So all my choices in the past all led me to this point, so it must have been right? And it's like, how can we pretend that because we're in love, the choices that we've made in the past, bouncing in and out of relationships, wasn't, there wasn't something causing that, And for me, it seems so apparent now that this quest for independence in women has created a unwanted level of masculinity in women. And men, naturally, because we're moving towards this left-wing liberal push to make men more emotional and embrace their feelings and all this kind of thing. Now you're finding women finding it harder and harder and harder to meet a strong man. I was out with a girl not too long ago, and she, we were getting into a bit of a debate, and she was convinced that women are as strong as men in every way. What way is a man, stronger than a woman? And I said, well, I mean, not to scare you, but I could snap you in half. And
so you're saying like physically stronger.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But there's actually people who are trying to say and suggest that women are, equal on every level. And they're really making an effort to try and convince young children and girls that this is the case. And what good is that going to do as young girls grow up, embracing this understanding that they are just as strong as men and they don't need strength. They don't need the strength of a man. What's that going to do to a young woman's perspective of love and relationships? It's going to distort it, drastically. And I wonder sometimes, when you were a kid, being where you are now, do you feel like, society, television, movies, entertainment media, whatever, pushed this idea that maybe was a bit of a lie into your sort of upbringing? Do you feel like you were sort of pushed into a direction to embrace this strength, or did you want to embrace this strength, or did it feel forced?
I think I just had to. It's not movie influences
Forced.
For me. It was more so like life experience and, situations that have happened and out of my control. I don't think it was movies or social media or anything like that, because social media didn't really exist until I was almost 20.
Well,
I guess.
We grew up with princesses and princes and all that kind of stuff.
I didn't really watch Disney movies.
Okay.
I was more like into like true crime.
I wonder, Julian, can you pull up, see if you can find a clip here, the top one there. So you can go to the...
My stepfather he's passed on now. He was very impulsive and aggressive, very like verbally, mentally, emotionally abusive. And then my mother, who is still with us, and I don't want to drag my mother, but my mother, I perceived her to be more passive and wasn't as protective of me as she should be. And so I think I either will attract a partner who brings this sort of overly masculine, the rage element, and then I become my mother in that relationship, or I attract a partner who plays the role of my mother, and that awakens a shadow in me as well, where I become very rebellious, and I resist and push against the relationship from that angle.
I'm so amazed to hear. Are you in therapy?
Yeah, I've been in therapy, obviously, for a long time. My stepfather he's passed on now.
So when you think about, as a child, not having a dad in your life, how did that, do you think, affected your perspective of men?
Like I said, I had my grandma and my grandpa. And so, not having my father, I never saw what my mom and dad were like together. So it wasn't like a dysfunctional, it was just an absence of him. So yeah, seeing my grandparents and seeing, my uncles and aunts and, people around me, or, my other grandparents, I was seeing what a good relationship was, a strong relationship where, not that I ever saw problems between my grandparents, because if they had problems, they resolved them. They didn't bring them out into our family. There was no, verbal abuse or anything like that when I was
Talking shit.
Yeah. No, my grandparents, just always probably hashed it out behind a closed door and just came out and, raised their kids, raised their grandkids, cooked a home meal. Everybody sat down at the table all the time. There was no disconnection. Like, it was like you were a whole family. So I did get that experience in my life. So yeah, I guess I didn't know what kind of love I was searching for, because I left the house at a young age too. So
You were like 14 or 15?
I think I was like 16 or 17. Then I moved out on my own, had my own apartment. I was still in high school at the time, but I didn't really know what kind of like love or relationship I was searching for. I just kind of winged it, as I got older. And I mean, you and I met like 15 years ago, and you've seen some of the people that I've dated, and, I've dated for a short period of time, and I'm like, this is not what I want. Or, like, this would be like better if it was like another time in my life, like, right people, wrong time, or
totally right.
wrong people, wrong time, wrong everything.
I've been a lot of right people, wrong time.
Yeah.
A lot of them. I mean, I've always had pretty good taste in women. I've always been lucky in attracting some really great girls, but I was too unaware of myself.
Yeah.
So what do you think about when you think about like the battle of the sexes right now? When you hear, maybe you don't hear, but I hear it all the fucking time, especially when I'm watching stuff on YouTube and TikTok these days. I hear so much man bashing, like just man hate towards men, like absolute disdain.
Yeah.
What do you think about, the way things are between men and women right now? What do you think about modern feminism itself and how, far it's come? Do you think?
I don't think women should hate on men. I think that they should just go to therapy. Realistically, like, you got to work on your stuff. Like, you can't just be dragging it into the next relationship. But
they're not aware.
They're not aware. They need to go to therapy. If they're that angry, then there's a situation. It's coming from somewhere. It's internalized. Like, you just, got to hang out with better people that aren't man hating and, bashing. It's like you are your surroundings. If you're hanging out with a bunch of women who are, moving in that direction where they don't need a man, they hate men, everybody in your group is going to be like that.
What do you, knowing this about yourself and having this self-awareness about, feminism and your masculinity, where do you go from here?
I think that I found somebody that brought out the kind of softer side of me, which was a little bit scary because it wasn't something that I had ever experienced before. But I saw the softer I got, I guess the bond in our relationship and our love got better, and it wasn't that bad. I was like, you know what? I kind of like this. I kind of like being, a little softer and more feminine, just leaning into, somebody in a more masculine role than me. And so my masculine energy kind of shifted, and I became warm. Became like wanting to, be a mother. I've always wanted to be a mother. I've always wanted kids, but never, the right partner hadn't come along. So when I felt that my feminine energy was coming up was when I felt the safest, because I had somebody who was, their masculine energy made me feel safe. So I would say I've had that experience now, and hopefully I can continue to move in the more feminine direction and find somebody that, is going to be that person, maybe provider, just provider in a relationship, not financially. But
haven't you typically dated guys around your age or younger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My age, a couple of years older, a couple of years younger. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, personally for me, I've always believed alpha females need to date older men. Like, and I don't mean fucking 15, 20 years. I just mean, you
Yeah.
know, I think the best age gap is about 6 to 10 years. I think it's possible for men to date women 15 to 20 years younger. They have to be pretty, healthy and take care of themselves. Otherwise, you know, a woman's just going to lose attraction as he gets, you know, too old,
Yeah.
too fast. But it's possible. I don't necessarily recommend it. I think you're stacking the odds against you, you know, the further you stretch that age gap out.
Well, and then if, you know, men in their, you know, mid 40s are dating women in their like late 20s, or early 20s, they're going to be at different times in their life. Whereas, you know, a man may be like, okay, like I haven't had any children. I kind of want, you know, to plan a family before it's too late. And the woman or the girl is not there yet because they're looking to maybe have children like later on when they're like in their early 30s. And so then the man gets older.
Well, do you think women waiting to have children in their 30s makes any sense?
You can have a kid whenever you want, as long as your body allows you.
Realistically, right? Like when you think about when a woman is in her prime to have children, it's between the ages of 18 and 25, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the statistical prime.
But I see what people are doing, women are doing in their ages of 18 to 25 right now. And it's,
Well, but what
yeah.
is the only reason to wait to have children in your 30s? Like really, what would be a reason to do it other than pursue your masculinity?
I guess get to a, you know, have your career, have yourself set up
Masculinity.
financially.
Masculinity. Right? Like if a woman wants to experience life, that's sort of where my brain goes. It's like, okay, she wants to travel, see the world, choose to experience joy through life rather than experience joy through family.
Yeah.
Right? That's really your two choices. You know, seek out joy through travel and life experience and seeing the world and experiencing it with other people, or experience joy through
Look for love at
family,
an earlier age.
children,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, for a woman to experience and explore life and travel and all those, that requires money. So you'd have to pursue a career or some type of, you know, path to make that a possibility. And I feel like that's really the only rational reason to delay having children, if that's something a woman wants to do. If she wants to have children, there really isn't any reason outside of wanting to see the world. And if that's not what you want to do, that makes no sense, in my opinion, for a woman to focus on, unless, of course, you know,
It's
she wants to
harder
be
to
a
find.
doctor, or
Yeah.
she wants to be a lawyer, or she wants to experience, you know, a career path that is, you know, enriching to a degree from, you know, helping others. That can be, you know, a rational path, but it just doesn't make any sense with what we know now. With what we know now about feminism and, you know, the marriage rates and everything that we know about our world sociologically, it just doesn't seem to be a smart path to recommend to women to go and, you know, start a business and become a boss babe and wait to have children until, you know, I become a real boss babe. Like, that just seems so counterintuitive and almost like you're shooting yourself in the foot now. You know,
Well, I don't think people plan to be, well, not every woman plans to be a boss bitch. I think that real relationships are harder to find now. Like, you get into a relationship and somebody's dating 9 other people and you think, oh, I've found somebody that I could see a future with. And then, you know, that person's online or, you know, dating multiple people. And it's like, you're not able to find like a great relationship right away. Like, even if you're in 18 to 25, you meet somebody who's maybe a little older and at the same, you know, wants the same things as you do in the same time frame. But how do you find those people? They're like, and maybe because people are in their masculine energy, but there are those women that are not. And
well, I think and you're absolutely right. It seems like a catch-22, right? Like, how do you navigate this when you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't?
Yeah.
But I think where people need to start is acknowledging their, mistakes and taking accountability for those mistakes and not trying to pass it off. As soon as you're in a relationship now, it's like you move into a relationship and boom, everything was a success. I mean, I've in my head somehow gotten it that way. If I meet somebody and it seems to be going great, it's like, wow, this is all adding up. And there has to be some accountability taken, and
people leave when it gets hard. They don't have the conversations that they need to have.
And I feel like if we learn to, the best thing that we can do now is kind of bring ourselves back to that 0 point as best as we can, find that center as best as we can. Because nowadays, these young girls are their partner numbers, they call it a body count now, right? And their body counts are by the time they're 21 years old, in the teens, right? These girls are sleeping with, 10, 12, 13 people by the time they're 21 years old. And that's crazy. So it makes it almost impossible for anybody to develop that pair bonding that happens through.
They're just doing it to have sex rather than have a connection.
Well, and I think a lot of these girls are being told to do it because, hey, guys do it. Why shouldn't we do it? Guys shouldn't do it either.
No.
Right? Guys shouldn't do it either. So why are we telling girls 2 wrongs make a right? You know what I mean? That's not the way it works. And that's what I mean by finding that center, going back to what we know has always worked. And that goes back to those traditional values. Unfortunately now, there's this movement on the other side, guys convincing, and here's the thing, I kind of understand what they're talking about, but they're trying to convince young women that they shouldn't, young men that they shouldn't date promiscuous women or women who have had a promiscuous past. And a part of me, thinks, okay, I get what they're saying, but you can't just, abandon all these women who have, been taught something or thought something that turned out to be misleading and incorrect or self-sabotaging. So, is it wrong to tell men to avoid these types of women? And then I think to myself, if my son wasn't in a relationship and he was single and he brought home a girl and I found out that she had had a promiscuous past, what would my natural instinct as a father be? It would be like, I don't know, And so I can understand what they're talking about, but at the same time, there's a part of me that feels like I would connect more with a woman who has been with more guys because
a lot of men expect to have a woman that they're, we'll say that porn is kind of ruining things. So you have this expectation.
Absolutely.
You meet somebody that has less sexual partners. They're less like sexual exploratory. They, they may, they haven't had that, confidence of maybe even being with more than 1 or 2 partners, right? They don't know how comfortable they are. And now there's a man that's come into the relationship, or a young man, and, their friends are all talking about how many women they've slept with, and, they've slept with a couple women, and
glorifying.
They're looking for this, really nice girl. Like, they've had parents that have had a great, relationship, and they see, oh, my parents have such a great relationship, but they don't know how to attain it when they get into a relationship with maybe a girl that hasn't had, sex with multiple partners, because their outside, I guess, influences from their friends and stuff is so different from, what they saw like growing up. It's just shifted into a direction that's, makes relationships hard when you get sexual with somebody. It's like maybe young men have like a bigger expectation for women to be a certain way or want them to be a certain way. But
well, it definitely takes a strong man. And I'll say that because to be able to be with a woman who has been with lots of men behind her, it takes a degree of like self-confidence to be, know that she's not going to, in your mind, be able to convince yourself she's not going to be comparing you with them.
But it's like a lot of men, and even in my relationship with, you know, a few people from my past, it's like they have this expectation because, you know, you're, you know, hot and sexy and, you know, you have this like look about you that you're going to be an absolute porn star all the time. It's just, it's not realistic. It doesn't matter how many people you've slept with. If you've had your body count is 50 or your body count is 14 or 2, it's like the expectation that some men put on women is not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you know, it like, you know.
But again, you're referring to porn addiction, right?
Not porn addiction, just expectations that.
But that's being
they
that's
don't
being
want
or inflated by porn.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like the
influences
access
of,
to porn.
you know, you have a young man that's maybe only had sex with one woman, and all of his friends are like, oh man, like I'm hooked up with so many women, this and that. Oh, she did this. That maybe they're showing pictures of this girl that, you know, she sent to them, and you know, the person that hasn't been with too many is like, oh, well, maybe I should shift into this. Like maybe I should expect more. Like, you know, I want to find somebody that does stuff like that, and it's like takes away from what
that comes down to the awakening, right? Yeah. Like once you're awake to the results of what all these behaviors have done to our society, once you wake up to that, it makes it, in my opinion, easier to push it away and almost look at it as, you know, from a hostile perspective. You know, for me, and when I think about my son and his ability to be in his relationship, I think as a man, you should be more proud nowadays to be able to be in a relationship and make that work and stay true to your partner rather than go around and, you know, hook up with tons of chicks and take down a lot of girls. That used to be the definition of what a man was, because we were convinced, and I've said this before, through entertainment media, and that they glorified the concept of a player, right? Through movies and television and music. And so it became
The Bachelor Canada, The Bachelor US.
Well,
like,
yes,
you know,
and
it's
yes.
like, you know,
But they glorified it to the point where men believed that, you know, the measure of a man was how many women he'd slept with. And I think now that we see where our society has come because of this promiscuity on both sides, it starts to seem more apparent that it's more of a proud move to make than it is to stay in the relationship and to be true to your partner.
A player is somebody who is ruled by their instincts. They're no different than a mouse who chases the cheese.
Well, it's true. I mean, they're definitely, you know, confused, right? Like I know I honestly thought that when I was in my 20s, I didn't think being in a relationship was masculine. I thought
there was something above masculine. Like,
well, I was convinced that I needed to get, you know, more notches on my bedpost, you know.
Was that because of the influences of your friends around you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Friends, but again, movies and television, right? You grow up watching, you know, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you know, he's got his little black book, right? Like, you know, talking to all the girlies, and you start seeing all these movies and television and music telling you that, you know, hooking up with girls is what makes you, you know, cool and makes you, you know, a player.
And seen
and it just, you know, and now here we are in the mid 2000s, or sorry, not the mid 2000s, in the 20s again. And now it's gone the opposite direction. Now women are under the understanding that promiscuity is freeing and is the measure of, you know, your beauty. But I think realistically, I don't even really buy that. I think that there's a subset of people that are believing that online. But when it comes down to it, most girls don't like chicks who sleep around. They kind of stay away from them. You know, most women kind of hate on girls who are promiscuous. They call them sluts, right? Like, and
slut shaming.
Yeah. So it seems like it's time to shift it back and wake people up to, you know, that truth and finding that balance and that center point. Because, I mean, like I said, for me, I'm not attracted to. I don't really have like a type. I've never really had a type.
I was just saying that the other day to you. I was like, looked back at, a couple of people you've dated, and, you say you're attracted to, alpha females in the past and stuff. And, they're still your friends. But yeah, you don't really have a type. Like, I
No.
look at just, a couple people that you've dated, and I'm like, oh,
I'll be
yeah,
honest,
all great women.
I'll be honest. I just like really attractive women.
Yeah. Well, who doesn't? Like I said earlier.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
attractive women. So I can find attraction in fucking anything.
Yeah.
I've found, thicker chicks beautiful. I found super skinny chicks with no butts attractive. You know what I mean? Like, I can find attraction in all sorts of ways. But I don't think there's any denying that girls that I've dated are socially considered beautiful women.
Yeah.
Um,
Naturally beautiful.
Yeah, so I don't really have a type per se, but I mean, with all the information that I know now about, divorce rates, just modern dating in general, there's this part of me that feels like maybe it would be a wise move to date a girl who is, more traditional, less promiscuous, less, more submissive, more into the idea of being a support system for her man, because that's not the way I've been taught to think.
I've shifted into that.
Yeah.
And, especially over COVID, I mean, dating was impossible. So you kind of had to sit with your thoughts and say, like, oh my gosh, I'm at this point in my life. Like, I could have had a partner through this. I could have a family through this. And, you really start to think, I was already thinking that way before then. But just kind of shifting out of, going on multiple dates, trying to find love, trying to find partners. It was I had to take a step back and just, fix myself, after my second love. They say the second one kind of destroys you a little, but I don't think that actually destroyed me. I think it was just, where I was at in my life that I started to realize, like, after that relationship, like, I'm like, hey, I need to shift into a different way of thinking, where I want to be in relationships, what I'm looking for. And of course I still went out on dates, but, I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted, the time length that I wanted it. I knew like potential partner that I wanted and how I wanted to be with them, and just be a little bit more, submissive and softer, and, wanted to be a mother, wanted to, still obviously still work, but have a partner that was like, wanted to make a future of supporting each other, of, goals, and, where the timeline was for my partner as well. So you start to think about all those things, and by not dating and not having all these distractions, you can really stay focused on, keep your eye on the prize.
What do you think about dating apps?
Yeah, I tried them, and I went on.
What do you think they've done to our society?
Oh, just making everything accessible. Like you're chatting to 4 or 5, 6, 10 different people, 3 different apps, and it's out of control. It's out of control, and it makes options so readily available that if you're not happy with one person that you're with, you can just go and find someone else right away. Click away.
And that's a part of it, I think. But I feel like it has basically erased the average man
You can be whoever
from
you
visibility.
want. Yeah.
It's erased the average man from visibility because you can set your height standards. 80% of women set their height standard to 6 feet and above.
Yeah.
So that means anybody under 6 feet isn't even being seen. Most women are attracted to men of higher status. Most women are attracted to men who are bigger and taller and stronger. And these apps make it easy for them to put those parameters in place.
But the filters get so small. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
When I had a dating app, I didn't even think you could put height and stuff on there. I think it was just like you set out your beacon, your parameter of like, I don't want to date somebody that's, when I was living in Vancouver, I don't want to date somebody that lives out in Maple Ridge because it's never going to work. I'm never going out there. But those are probably the more established people that have houses and stuff out there, man. But I never knew that you could do like height. And I mean, it's been a number of years.
You can now. And I mean, you can't do
but
like...
it's lessening the pool of men that you can find. So it's like I would like swipe through, and this was a number of years ago. I haven't been on dating sites forever, but you just like swipe in your area and like what your filters were, and I'd literally run out of them in like 20 swipes.
I know.
You
Julian,
know?
can you look up how many women swipe, or how many women swipe right on what percentage on dating apps? Because it's literally like women for the most part find most men ugly, not unattractive, ugly. Most women consider most men ugly. And when you look at what men think about women, I think it's, and Julian can look this statistic up hopefully as well, but men will tend to swipe, I think it's like on like 50% of women.
Women also take better photos at different angles. Like sometimes when I have like seen men on dating apps, they have like the worst angle. It's like under the chin, or, you know, just like,
Really?
oh yeah. And like
Guys
women
just like post whatever.
Women take more photos of themselves. They wear makeup. There are filters,
Yeah.
you know, and they're more inclined to use those things and can find resources of how to take a good photo, or, you know, whereas men are like, I just didn't take a photo. Yeah, this looks great. This is what I always look like. And so the angles of the photos,
Here.
you
Why
know,
is
can
it that
really,
only swipe right 30% of the time? About 20% of all female dating apps users also turn down more than 80% up. Can you go back to the other statistic that seemed to make more sense? Why is that while men swipe right on 40% of women, average this number is only 7%. So women
Yeah.
swipe right
Yeah.
on 7% of men, and men almost swipe right on half, which is crazy. And again, like I said, so what's happening is you're getting all the women swiping on 20% of the guys, which is what the
because
statistic.
they think they're ugly. Women think men are ugly on
Well,
dating apps.
and
or-
women can you know, and women hate it when guys put numbers on physical beauty, but you can take a woman who is a 5 out of 10, and she can get her lips done, she can get her fillers done, and you're looking at these girls, and I've seen it happen. We've all seen it. These average looking girls we've grown up with or we've known for years, they get their lips pumped up and they get some cheek filler, and they start taking pictures. They're like, holy shit,
looks like a filter now.
this chick is gorgeous. Like, this chick is beautiful. What happened? And that's the difference between, you know, the attraction between men and women is men, we see beauty. Like, I can find
so many different
I can
ways.
find, you know, so many women attractive, especially if you give us just a little bit of time alone with them, you can tend to find them attractive. Women don't find most men attractive. So now women are finding they're only swiping right on 7% of the men, and that 7% of the men who, because we live in a world which is antisocial and clubs aren't really, you know, places where
People aren't meeting others, I guess, like organically anymore. And like I said, back to the bad photos. Men take terrible photos. If you met them in person, chances are, you know, their photo was like a 2,
Fair enough.
and then you meet them in person and they're like, oh, they're like an 8.
It's
bad
true.
angles,
It's
like,
true.
you know.
There are guys who have like bad teeth, bad smiles, and then when you see them, or just like you said, they're just unphotogenic.
Yeah.
And then you see them in person, and they're
Like, oh, it's
you're like, that
that's
guy's
okay.
not a bad looking
They
guy.
also, like, a lot of men put pictures like from years before, like 10, 15 years, because they don't have a lot of photos. They
Yeah.
like use their profile photo from like
Yeah.
when they started Facebook, like,
Well, because
you know,
nobody,
because they're
like,
not taking selfies, and you know.
and that's the thing for me. Like, I've given up on dating apps because I don't have anybody in my life to take pictures of me. If I want to post recent pictures, I got to take selfies.
Julian can
And-
take photos for you.
Yeah, and girls hate guys who are posting selfies. So it's like,
Yeah, they got the like shirtless, like, you know, mirror selfie, or they're with like some exotic animal, or, you know, something like that, like a drugged up tiger in another country,
Or
or,
a
iguana.
fish, or a
No,
fish.
you know what? That's just dating apps in
girls are
Canada.
always like, I've seen
That's
I've,
a big fish.
I've swiped through lots of girls who say, if you're just posting pictures of fish, I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
Lots of girls hate the fish pics, but dudes post a lot of fish pics.
Well, at least they're out doing something, you know, that they enjoy doing. Like, show
Absolutely.
that what you like doing.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? Realistically, those guys who post fish pics, they always end up with some down to earth chick who
Wants to go fishing.
who just is, you know, soft, type girl. And,
I love fishing.
You know, and the guys like myself who post like, you know, great shots or, you know, have their muscles out or, you know, like I'll attract really great looking chicks on these dating apps, but they end up being boss babes.
Superficial.
Yeah. They end up wanting, you know, hyper successful men who have make tons of money, and because they have these extravagant lifestyles. So I see these beautiful Instagram looking girls now, and I mean, I kind of feel like it turns me off. I see the pumped up lips and the you know, hardened jawlines with fillers and all this stuff, and the butt lifts. I see that and I think, holy shit, that girl's gonna be expensive. You know, she's going to cost me a lot of money, and she's going to probably work me to the bone. And men don't want to work to the bone for somebody who expects it. They want to work them. They will happily work themselves to the bone for somebody who just appreciates it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My brother's the perfect example. He's been married for many, many years. He's got 2 little girls, beautiful little girls who are my, you know, just love being around them. But he will work himself to the bone. Like he does iron work, and you know, he came over the other day and he had to take his boots off because he'd been standing in a puddle for 8 hours and his feet were killing him because they were like so shriveled up and swollen from, you know, sitting in water. But that's his job. He sits all day just grinding, and this is what most men do. Most men, 95% of those jobs, infrastructure jobs, construction jobs, hard fucking dirty grungy jobs,
Camp jobs.
those are men doing those jobs. And all they want to do is have a soft woman to support them when they get home and rub their fucking feet and make them feel like it's all worthwhile.
Yeah.
You know, when they come home and their wife is pissing and moaning at them and expecting
for
them
credit cards.
Well, not even just asking for credit cards, but you know, like expecting him to clean up after the kids, and you know, it's like he just got home after a 10-hour day or an 8-hour, 9-hour day of grinding, and you're gonna yell at him to pick up the kids' toys and help with, you know, washing the kids up. Like I understand if the wife is working equally as difficult a job, but if you're working a pretty easy job, you know, let him hit the couch for an hour.
Go have a hot shower.
You know, let him have an hour to decompress from the tough job that he had just done.
So women to be a little bit more feminine, lean into their softer sides. They'll have a better chance of finding a.
Well, I really do. I just feel like this is a lesson, a life lesson that we need to start talking about. And it doesn't mean that we need to start telling women to not be independent, to not be successful, to not go pursue your dreams. If your dreams are your dreams, pursue them. But we need to make sure that these younger generations are aware of what is happening.
Why it's so difficult to find that love.
They need to be aware of what is going on, because it's like you said, it's making it difficult to find love, right? And if they become more aware of it, maybe they won't grind so hard to become so independent, because women, in my opinion, don't need to be so independent. They shouldn't have to be so independent. They should be more able to lean into that femininity, lean into being a mother, lean into being a lover, lean into being a caretaker. And I think every woman truly wants to lean into that. I think we have had a lot of women like Ronda Rousey and other people telling women to not be a do-nothing bitch, you know? And so women have started to feel like this pressure that they need to become a success on their own. And yeah, we're just, you know, we're doing the corporation's bidding by living like this, because it's just driving us apart.
My personal experience that when I did become a little softer and leaned into my, you know, feminine energy is when I found real love. May not be there right now, and it's something fairly recent that kind of came to an end, or who knows, maybe it's not the end, but definitely that's when I found real love and really connected with somebody. Could be myself, but at the same time, like, felt safe to be more feminine, to build a future based on, like, you know, my softer side, like, you know, wanting a family. Like I said, I've always wanted a family, but just creating that household that.
And in this recent situation, what is the current status of, you know, his interest?
It's complicated.
Of course, it's complicated.
It's complicated.
But
it's
I mean,
still very fresh.
But
Yeah.
women have been taught to throw a relationship away for infidelity, and that might not necessarily be the answer in all cases. You know what I mean?
Not throwing it away.
Well,
I haven't thrown it away.
and I'm not
It's
saying
just-
you have.
No, I'm just saying, like, you really got to work with somebody if you truly love them.
Absolutely, and infidelity in can be just as much a result of confusion because of society's involvement in our lives nowadays as femininity modern feminism has been a destruction to women's ability to be in a relationship, right? So if women could learn to try and work with their partners more,
Absolutely.
it might be worth a shot, right? It might be worth salvaging something because, hey, what would be better than making something work and creating some children and actually learning both parties figuring that they need to find that balance again and push the world out. Because the world is what corrupts us, right? The world is what sabotages our relationships nowadays. And if we can find that person, make amends, and then find that balance and push the world out, it's fully possible to make these relationships that have been destroyed by poor choices potentially work.
Yeah, creating a healthy relationship and household, and being like my grandparents too, like making things work. Like if there's a problem, work through it. Be a partner, be supportive, even if they're struggling in their own like darkness or, habits or past demons. You got to be there. And you think about that when you get in a relationship with somebody. Is this going to be, when something happens later on down the road, am I going to be able to support my partner? If they get in a car accident or they lose their parent or we have a miscarriage or they turn out to have addiction problems or, if they cheat, like you have to take that in consideration. Like, are you going to be prepared for that in a relationship? Are they going to provide back to you if something were to, or are they going to just up and walk away when things get difficult?
Here's multiple circumstances that I've seen over the course of my life with women, clients, friends, especially, years and years ago when we were in our 20s. I know lots of women who were in what they thought to be great relationships only to be cheated on by their partner and then of course throw the relationship away. And the guy goes on and finds another girl and gets pregnant and has a baby and starts their life. And the woman who abandoned the relationship because she couldn't deal with the infidelity goes on to, only to get cheated on again and seems to find a similar pattern. And then, enters their late 30s, early 40s, only to find themselves alone with no children where they could have potentially worked on something with a person who was clearly sorry and clearly realized, oh man, my selfishness got the best of me. And sometimes I wonder, like, do we need to start encouraging people to not throw things away for things like infidelity?
Yeah, because everybody's used to just having the next thing, the next click away, the next swipe away, the next inbox message, and we need to learn how to fix things. Because like I will go to the grave trying to fix something that I know is right for me.
Yeah, and there's it's just so easy now, right? To cheat. It's so easy for people to go out there and make it happen. And again, if we don't acknowledge the detriment that society pays to our relationships, then we'll never get out of the pattern. We'll always be in that cycle of allowing society to dictate how our relationship turns out instead of, allowing society to come in and out of our lives when we say it can. Because right now we want to keep up with the Joneses. We want to impress everybody. I mean, I don't live that way anymore. I definitely have found a real center in my life now. But, my job in my mind now, and I can tell you're feeling the same way, and that's why we want to do this podcast, is because it's a real good way to get your thoughts and your ideas and your message out. And you can help start to, be a contributing member to waking people up and helping spread better information to younger generations.
Well, and knowing you're not alone when you're going through these situations, right? Like sometimes it's like embarrassing to talk about like, oh, my partner cheated on me, or, oh, you know, this or that. And it's like, you talk to your friends about it, and then it's like, you end up getting back together with them and they're like, oh, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Like you're being so stupid. It's like, you know, it's happens to everybody. Bad things happen in relationships, and you can't keep it inside. You need somebody to talk to about it, but everybody's experience is different. You know, maybe your friend, you know, threw away their relationship over something less than that. Or maybe your group of friends are man haters and they just, you know, beat down men, and you don't need that man, but you know.
We should probably wrap this up. But I think we can probably get into this more. Well, I want to find, you know, an interesting guest to kind of go into more of this discussion for next week, and we'll have to brainstorm on who we could think of. I think we got some good stuff on, you know, who Kai is, and
just touch the iceberg, you know.
But honestly,
we don't need to get into the rest.
No, and I feel like, you know, if we're gonna end on something, I think maybe you should start seriously considering. Maybe trying to salvage whatever it is that you know, you're dealing with right now, because
it's worth it.
Well, it might be.
It
you
is.
know, it might be. It worked for as long as it did, and it sounds to me like he dealt with, you know, some things on his own that probably have demons of their own.
Time apart also, you know, gets
Sure,
you thinking about.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'd love to see you become a mother. I'd love to see you have all your, you know, dreams come true in that respect. And I do think that maybe it would be worth, you know, a conversation.
Absolutely.
We'll leave it at
That's
that.
where I'm at.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right.
If it's worth it, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Only you know inside your heart, right?
All right. That's a wrap.